You hear that? It's the sound of disappointment. This is the worst PC case that I've ever laid my hands on. It comes coupled with frustration, sadness, despair. Is the Tank PC case. If you've spent any time on the internet looking at computer-related videos, gaming PC videos, you've seen likely our video on the Tank PC case, as well as other people like Linus. Everyone's made a video at this point about this case, but our history with this case is very storied. It's very sad. It involves getting hyped for something and then receiving a box that sounds like this. It's the sound of glass. Showed up, broken, shattered, and much like my dreams, completely destroyed. So what do? We're gonna build in it. But first, I wanna remind you what we've dealt with in the past. I hate this case. So when we first got this case, showed up broken, we made a few videos and I was amazed at how many views we were getting. Clearly there's interest in this. The big problem that I have though is just in general, it's not a great case in any sense of the word. Airflow's terrible, the design, it looks a little cringe, not gonna lie. But for some reason, you guys want to see a finished, perfected build of this, and there's no way that we can do it in its current form, right? There's a lot of things about this case that just make it terrible. Like I mentioned, airflow is one of the biggest reasons why this is a god-awful case. So we'll have to do a bunch of customizations to make this functional and live up to the name of a Tank PC. Well, there's one way to do it. A big, tall, skinny guy named Chris. I wasn't paying attention when he told me, but he has a bunch of really cool ideas for this build, and personally, I can't wait to see it because just looking at this is getting me pissed. I hate this case. I hate it. Chris, help me out here, bud.
That's right, we're finally building the Tank PC. It's just been sitting around collecting dust while every other YouTuber makes their videos on it. The common consensus is that this thing sucks. And looking at it, I'd have to agree. I didn't want to build this thing. I was trying to hide it away in the room long enough that no one would notice, but unfortunately, here we are with some modifications hopefully to allow for some larger, more mainstream hardware to be included into here, as well as hopefully improve on the airflow situation that we have going on in this case. Now for our experiment here, we're working with some high-end hardware with the attempt of producing as much heat as possible. So for that, we have a 14900K paired with a 4090. That'll generate around 800 watts of heat, which we have an LS720 and 12 of these Lee & Lee Infinity fans to help take care of. Some of the other hardware we have going into this build will be a Z790 Riptide board from ASRock, 32 gigabytes of Kingston Renegade memory, 2 terabytes of M.2 storage, and of course this SFX power supply just to give us more room for this giant 4090. So we'll get all this hardware installed into the case here, and we'll do some initial benchmarking and see just how bad the airflow is on this case with its standard configuration. And based off those results, we'll have to see just how much modification is needed to make this case actually perform with all of this crazy hardware we have going on here. One small minor complaint here, all of the glass panels are attached with these little screws here, which have a pentagon in the center. And for those that may not know, most screws and sockets are not pentagons, meaning this is a pain in the ass to take apart. The build is coming together nicely here. We've got most of the main hardware installed, which gets us to our first modification. As you'll see, we went with the 4090, of course, but we went with the smallest one, which is this OG edition, which as you can tell, just perfectly matches the height of the case here, with the exception of this. Pretty much any other 4090 would stick up even further than this, but this is our main issue. So onto the top part here, we already have a small opening for ventilation. Essentially, we're just going to be expanding upon this cutout and giving us a little bit more room for that 40 series card to fit within the top of the case. Alright, so with our modified top panel here, we were able to install our 4090 graphics card and get some baseline test results here. So we ran 3D Mark and Cinebench, and right off the bat here, I'm noticing that our 4090 graphics card was hitting just about 80 degrees Celsius, which tells me there's a lot of room for improvement on this system. Just under 29,000 on the 3D Mark and just under 36,000 on Cinebench. Of course, the glaring issue, which everyone probably has noticed by now, this case has absolutely no ventilation. So these bottom 3 fans on both sides, this is just a solid piece of tempered glass. glass with basically nowhere except for some small little slits on the front here for air to actually get pulled in and exhaust through the top, which once again is blocked by more glass. So what we're gonna do is take these panels and measure them and try to create our own version out of acrylic that hopefully includes a lot more ventilation and makes these much more practical and hopefully better looking at the same time. So let's get to designing and let's make something that actually looks good. So now we're here in Illustrator, my go-to design software for some basic 2D artwork like this. I've basically taken the side panel of the case, taken the piece of glass that was sitting there and traced it out, found the same dimensions of it, and then I've been playing around here with different circle shaped patterns to recreate kind of like a tank tread wheel pattern that will also act as the airflow once we laser cut this pattern out of the acrylic.
I heard you got that piece of working.
The time has come.
Now, Christopher, am I to understand that there's a finished tank PC under this cloth?
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness, we have a storied past with this case, and
so.
I have a lot of pent-up hate, so I hope you've made enough changes to where I hate it less.
I'd like to think we did. I mean, the tank from the start was obviously, it had some room for improvement, so we've taken a lot of changes here, made some pieces of acrylic, done some painting, and I think it's gonna be quite a bit different.
There's painting involved, guys. Some arts and crafts. All right, let's get this over with. Let's check this out.
Let's check it out. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
This looks like a tank PC is supposed to look. Oh my God, this looks so different. All right, Chris, walk me through all of the various customizations that you've done on this build. I can see just visually the side and the top look very, very different, but walk me through what happened.
Right off the bat, we wanted to put high-end hardware inside of this case, which we couldn't. There wasn't enough clearance here with this top panel being glass that we couldn't fit a 40 series card inside of that with the power cables and the extra cooler protruding to the top. We first solved that with putting this top piece of acrylic here, thicker piece just to hopefully help with some of the weight that's going on. Recut so we have space for that 40 series card. But then of course we have the same issue as everyone else. There is absolutely no airflow in this case.
And everyone talked about that too. Like I think Linus and a bunch of people said, okay, kind of cool case, but the airflow sucks.
Absolutely,
right?
Everyone went through the effort of building a whole computer in here just to realize it's gonna suck.
So obviously you've made all of these customizations that will help with airflow, and ostensibly that will help with performance as well. What I'm really curious about numbers wise, let's talk math. Let's do some nerd math. What is the real world difference in performance now that you've made these awesome customizations to the system?
We ran some numbers and it's noticeable. Just on the GPU alone, we were dropping it by 15 degrees Celsius from having the glass versus just a little bit of ventilation.
That's massive
It
for
is.
people that maybe don't know. 15-degree difference just from making these modifications is quite a bit.
Now your computer is very smart and it knows how to clock itself up and down relative to that temperature. So being able to have more of a threshold to work within means that that GPU is able to hit higher clocks and run longer at higher clock speeds.
What I'd love to talk about is maybe even some of the like before and after, some rough numbers. So you used a couple different programs for benchmarking and testing and scores. Let's talk about that.
So now for our testing, I'm sure we'll have on the screen here somewhere we ran both Cinebench and 3D Mark. Cinebench was a fantastic test for our CPU, which did notice a huge difference in the temperatures where it was able to score 3,000 to 4,000 points higher just by having a little bit of extra airflow. 3D Mark, very similarly, we saw a boost in the CPU. The GPU, not as much just because it's kind of going to go full tilt regardless, but it was staying at a lower temperature throughout the test.
Impressive. I mean, if you're looking at a system like this, obviously everyone gets excited about this case because it's a freaking tank.
It's so different.
What sucks sometimes with these cases is a lot of time is put into the exterior and the look and how does it appear on the outside, but then when it comes down to brass tacks, you're like, okay, how are we going to get the most performance out of this? That seems like it's like an afterthought with a lot of these cases.
They definitely go a little bit of the form over function. I don't know if they've ever actually built a computer in it first, but at least it looked cool. Brings you back to the old days of PC modding, you know, cut some vent holes in a panel and bring the performance up by quite a bit here.
I love it. That's what it's all about, man. Modding, like back in the day, this is what real PC enthusiasts got into, was how they could squeeze the most performance out of their system, best airflow, all of that, and we've accomplished it with the case. You did a great job, dude.
Thank you.
Awesome. Guys, tank PC build, done. What do you think? Let us know. Be sure to give Chris some props in the comments. He spent a lot of time on this and did a great job on the build. Awesome job, my friend. And if you enjoyed this video, next week, we have something cool coming. Now we can't really talk about too much, but it's a new product. So next video, you're gonna wanna stay tuned for that. That's coming out next week. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.